most of what you are going to get is symptom management techniques. In fact, that's 99% of what you're going to get out there is, hey, let me teach you how to accept the symptoms, which I'm not against, by the way. I'm against that in isolation. But let me show you how to distract away from the symptoms. Or here, take this, and this will make you feel better. This will make the symptoms not so severe. Or do this thing or this thing, and it'll help you manage the symptoms. I am not about that. I'm not about picking apples off an apple tree. I'm about let's uproot this whole freaking tree. What's up? Welcome. So in this video, dang it, I just dropped my Lindor chocolate. Anybody else have an addiction to these? Nope, me neither. Anyway, in this video, we're going to be talking about the 3 reasons that you're probably more anxious than you realize. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of people don't recognize how severe their anxiety is because of these 3 reasons, and they don't get the help that they need. I know that was definitely my story. I walked around with extreme anxiety for years and years and years and years, but because of these 3 things, I didn't really figure out that it was a problem until I was having 20 panic attacks a day. And everything just built up in my nervous system, and I don't want that to happen to you. So anyway, if you're ready to overcome anxiety, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, join the trauma-free family if you're struggling with anything related to trauma, which is a state of nervous system overwhelm, anxiety, panic attacks, depersonalization, realization, emotional numbness, anxious thoughts, and I could go down the list. But anyway, any of that stuff, make sure to subscribe, and I would love to help you. We also have a brand new free masterclass called the 5 Shifts to Heal from Trauma, Anxiety, Panic, and Depersonalization, Realization. Link below, and at the end, if you would like us to work with you in our 12-week mentorship program, there is a link to apply to that. That's where me and my team really hold your hand and walk you through our body-based strategy and just give you the hope and the encouragement that you need along the journey, because it is very difficult. The very first reason that you are more anxious than you realize is because anxious behaviors have become normal. Anxious symptoms and behaviors have become normal. And I want to give you a perfect example of this. So I did a call this morning with a lady who's in our 12-week mentorship program, and a couple weeks ago, we identified that she was experiencing some kind of more obsessive, anxious behaviors. And once we identified that, all of a sudden she started to realize that her whole life is full of these anxious behaviors, very obsessive, right? So obsessive, compulsive behaviors. And I wrote down some of them from our meeting this morning, and I told her I was going to mention her in this video. So whenever she sets down glasses, whenever she's washing or drying her hands, whenever she's going down steps, whenever she's clicking a pen to, get the pen to turn on, whenever she's brushing her teeth, whenever she's screwing caps on and off of drinks, whenever she's walking. We also identified that she's constantly checking her environment to see if she feels connected, and she obsessively repeats songs in her head. These are just a few of the things that she has all kinds of obsessive behaviors related to. And those obsessive behaviors and anxious behaviors are conveying threat to the nervous system, and it's part of the big ball of wires, metaphorically speaking, that is contributing to her state of nervous system overwhelm. She's going through trauma, which is where you're literally overwhelmed by stress in your nervous system. And so anyway, we identified these things, but she told me something. She said, I can't even believe it. I mean, she's been walking around like this for decades. She says, I can't even believe that all these things are in my life, all these anxious behaviors, right? Because these behaviors are called procedural memory, which is a subconscious physiological association, like driving, right? A procedural memory is essentially what's the procedure in the body whenever you're around this sensory data. So that's why you jump on a bicycle. You don't even have to think about it. Your feet move the right way. You turn the bike without even having to really think about it. Driving, there's all kinds of procedural memories that our brain has. And what ends up happening is, at first, it's conscious. You start doing these anxious behaviors, these obsessive or compulsive behaviors, but eventually it becomes subconscious and you don't even think about it anymore. And that becomes dangerous from a recovery perspective, because if it's just normal, well, then you're probably not going to even try to fix it anymore. But what we're doing with her is we're helping to identify all of these obsessive compulsive behaviors so we can replace that with a pattern interrupt, namely changing things in the body and not feeding these obsessions, which will rewire the nervous system. But we have to become aware of it first. But if you're not even aware that it's happening, how are you going to even begin to rewire the nervous system and discontinue these obsessive compulsive behaviors? Number 2, you are living in your head all the time. That's the second reason why you are probably more anxious than you realize. The brain registers emotional distress and physical pain is the same thing. It's the anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula. And so whenever you experience emotional distress and you don't know how to self-regulate, which is where you have the ability to get into a calm, relaxed body, really change the state of your nervous system through the body, you're going to naturally flee. And the first place that we flee to whenever we feel anxious is our head. Because if you're deep into your head, you're distracted, well, then you're going to become unaware of what's happening interoceptively. Interoception is the experience of the embodied self, and emotions are experienced in the form of physical sensations in the body. So whenever your body is bombarded with all of these very negative physical sensations and you don't know how to use self-regulation techniques to change the state of your body, and also make lifestyle adjustments too is often required, well, then you're going to want to feel better, right? We're always trying to get back into nervous system balance, even if the way that we get back into balance is not in a healthy way. And so we start going into our head, and maybe you live in the past. Maybe you dwell on the future. Maybe you dwell on people's opinions of you. Maybe you get on TikTok, or maybe you look, or you watch videos on Netflix. You know, there's all kinds of ways that people will get into their head. You know what? Obsessing over existence is often a dissociative outlet to get you out of your body. Obsession over your health. So health anxiety can oftentimes be a way for you to stay stuck in your head. Because if you're always obsessing over existence or your health or people's opinions of you or this thing or that thing, you're not having to face the physical sensations that are happening in your body. And that's why it literally breaks my heart that there are people out there that are teaching that distraction is the cure to anxiety or trauma or depersonalization, realization. This is not only not true, that is opposite of what we want to do. We don't want to escape the body. We want to get back in the body and make our body our safe place. And you can't do that if you're always up here. In fact, that's just feeding the problem. And I've worked with thousands of people, and I would say at least 40%, probably more, I'm being conservative, were taught this distraction stuff. And it's really sad because it didn't get them anywhere. And now they just had to suffer for even longer. But that's the second reason why you're probably more anxious than you think, is you spend a lot of time living in your head. But there's no shame. I don't say that to shame you. In fact, this is a skill set. You know how to make yourself feel better. We just have to change the way that you're making yourself feel better. Instead of feeling all these physical sensations, these negative physical sensations and running to your head, we have to teach you to get back into the body and calm the body and release the buildup of energy sometimes. Maybe there's some emotion that needs to process, and then your body will be your safe place, and you don't need to run into the refuge of your head all the time. But another thing, and this is still under the second reason, is we directly numb the body. You could use alcohol. You could use, we had a lady come to our mentorship, which she now is like almost symptom free. It's freaking incredible. But when she first came into our mentorship, she would get anxious and then she'd run to the gym. You know, all the endorphins are released at the gym, and also people go into their head. They got the music blaring. It's really one big dissociative experience for a lot of people at the gym. But anyway, not that the gym is bad, by the way. But anyway, or she would just take a Xanax, and also she had an alcohol problem where she would just drink a lot of wine, and that was how she got back into balance. But now we have shown her how to self-regulate, and now she doesn't need that stuff anymore. And now she's actually a business owner, and she's going all in on her business. And now I'm able to help her with post-traumatic growth, and I'm helping her with doing videos and coaching and training, you know, with her clients. I think, yeah, she's a gym owner. But anyway, that's what can happen if you really get back into your body and stop running and stop numbing your body and stop running from your body by living in your head, is you can actually get free of this stuff and you can focus on your dreams in life. And that's really where I get excited, because that's what this is all about for me, people being able to step in their destiny. And then the last reason that you're probably more anxious than you realize is because fear hasn't kicked in, or fear kicks in periodically, but not most of the time. Let me tell you what fear is. Fear is not an emotion. So this is according to Joseph Ledoux, who is the world's leading neuroscientist when it comes to fear and threat detection. He was actually on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about this very thing. Fear is when you consciously become aware that your body is in fight or flight response and you have a sense of danger. But prior to that moment, there's still activation in your nervous system, right? You're experiencing sensory data that is similar to painful things from your past, and it's causing an increase of sympathetic nervous system activation, but you're not even going to become consciously aware of it until fear kicks in, which is a relatively high level of sympathetic nervous system elevation. And most people think that they're fine because they feel fine. But there was some experiments that were done where they had people sit in front of a screen, and the scientist would flash subliminally a picture of a snake and a spider, which are original triggers. These are things that we all associate with threat, going back to our ancient ancestors. And they had them hooked up to an oximeter, blood pressure monitor, brain scanning. And after they flashed the snake and the spider, they asked the participants, they said, "Did you see anything on the screen?" They said no. And then the scientists asked the participants, "Did you feel anything?" And they said, "No, we feel the same that we felt whenever we walked in here." But on the monitors, heart rate was going up, blood pressure was going up, perspiration rates were going up, the amygdala was firing, which is what sends a threat signal to the sympathetic nervous system to prepare the body for fight or flight response. And they had no conscious awareness of what the sensory trigger was, because it was flashed subliminally below the level of conscious awareness, and they didn't feel any different. What does that tell us? That tells us that we are activated in our nervous system below the level of conscious awareness until fear kicks in. And this is why I teach people interoception. Interoception is the experience of the embodied self. It's you getting back in tune with your body and feeling even the subtlest levels of tension or energy and emotion, and releasing those things before fear kicks in. I oftentimes use the water bottle example. Let's say at the top is a trauma state. That's nervous system overwhelm. For those of you who are struggling with depersonalization, realization, a lot of people follow me are, you're up here. That's like overwhelming sympathetic nervous system activation, where actually now the parasympathetic nervous system has kicked in and has activated dissociative symptoms and numbing symptoms, which would be the dorsal vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system. But let's say down here is complete calm. Well, let's say fear is like up here. That's where you consciously become aware that your body is in fight or flight response and you've got a sense of danger. So if you're not being interoceptive down here and feeling these subtle levels of tension, energy, and emotion, and releasing it, by the time it gets to here, you're really close to right here, which is panic, and then you're really close to here, which is overwhelm. Right? Do you see how we have to have a preventative approach to this? Otherwise, you're just living in reaction to fear. You're just managing fear, which is just like waiting until your house is full of trash and clothes and toys if you have kids like I do. We've got literally a whole herd of girls now. I've got my wife, my daughter, my stepdaughter, and then I just had a new daughter, which, oh my gosh, she is literally the most incredible girl ever. And we've got another female dog. There's one male dog that, like, we're the only males in the house. But anyway, it's like if you've got toys laying everywhere in trash and you don't pick it up and you just let it build up and build up, well, can you clean it? Well, of course you can. And that's what I do, is I help people clean up the mess, clean up their house, metaphorically speaking. It's like basically people's bodies, when they come to me and my team, it's like that show Hoarders, if you've ever seen that on TLC. Their bodies are just full of all kinds of tension, energy, and emotion, fatigue. And there's all kinds of numbing and dissociative behaviors and so much confusion and all these things. And I walk with them and help them deal with the mess, but I most importantly help them live a preventative lifestyle so they never have to deal with this again. There are some people, though, that work with me, and I help them get symptom free. And then they stop doing this stuff. They stop listening to their body. They stop making the appropriate lifestyle adjustments, and then they end up back in symptoms. And I'm happy to work with them again. In fact, I've got 3 people right now that I'm working with that I helped become symptom free, and then they stopped doing the stuff, and then the symptoms came back, right? It's just like weight loss. It's like if you lose 100 pounds, it's not like you can stop doing the diet. You've got to keep doing the calorie deficit. I mean, you can compromise a little bit once you've lost the weight, and you're going to gain just like a pound or whatever, and you can burn that off pretty quickly. But you still have to do maintenance. You still have to, in this case, you have to self-regulate. You have to listen to your body, and you have to make sure that you've got boundaries in your life that are preventing the buildup of stress and fatigue. And there's a lot of things to that. But anyway, what I'm saying is, we can deal with the buildup, but it's probably going to take you minimum, for most people, 3 months. Most people 6, 7, 8 months, and then maybe like, I don't know, don't quote me on this, maybe 15% it'll take over a year. It depends on how bad it is. Now, I think a lot of these time frames are just dependent on how, like, are they all in or not? But I'm just telling you, like, if you've spent years and years and years living in your head, numbing your body, you haven't been self-regulating, you haven't been setting up the appropriate boundaries in your life, like, it's going to take some time to rewire the nervous system. Like, if we're going to do this right, it's not going to happen overnight. And that's why I don't teach all these supposed quick fixes. There is no quick fix for this. There's not. If there was, I would tell you about it. If we're going to literally rewire the nervous system, you're going to have to face your body. You're going to have to face your emotions. You're going to have to self-regulate. You're going to have to make adjustments to your lifestyle. You're going to have to get educated. You're going to have to stop resisting the symptoms. There's a lot of things that we need to do. But if you go through this process and you start to live a preventative lifestyle, it's very easy to maintain your results. I may spend, 15 minutes a day, maybe not even that, maintaining my results, just doing various self-regulation techniques. A big part of it is boundaries with people, boundaries with your work, sleep, diet, your focus. There's a lot of things, but of course, staying in a relaxed body is really, really important. But I don't wait until fear kicks in. In fact, fear never kicks in for me, because I don't allow it to happen. I'm staying so interoceptive, and if I feel even just a little bit of tension, I'm like, droop, release it. A little bit of emotion, droop, release it, right? A little bit of energy, a little bit of adrenaline building up, I release it. If I start to notice that, a person or a situation is starting to just drain my energy, I deal with it right then. I do not allow everything to escalate. But for years and years, I didn't do that, and I paid the price. So anyway, I know I'm spending a few minutes on this last one, but it's very, very important that you know that just because you feel okay does not mean that you're okay from a nervous system perspective. Think about like a volcano. This is the perfect example of fear. Fear is the volcanic eruption. That's whenever you become conscious of the lava. But you go to any volcano in the world. Now, I'm not would it be a volcanologist? I don't even know if there's a name for it. I'm not a volcano person, okay? So don't quote me on this. But I'm pretty sure if you go to any volcano in the world, and if you could like zoom in underground, there's going to be magma there, right? I think that means that it's dormant, but there's pressure slowly building, and eventually there will be a volcanic eruption, right? So whenever it comes to what's building up in your body and your life, like if you're not dealing with it, especially once it's just little baby stuff, there will be an escalation, and eventually you will become consciously aware of it, and by that point, you've got to deal with so much buildup that it's better to have just prevented it all together. And most of what you're going to hear, I'm done with my rant in just 1 second, most of what you are going to get is symptom management techniques. In fact, that's 99% of what you're going to get out there is, hey, let me teach you how to accept the symptoms, which I'm not against, by the way. I'm against that in isolation, but let me show you how to distract away from the symptoms, or here, take this, and this will make you feel better. This will make the symptoms not so severe, or do this thing or this thing, and it'll help you manage the symptoms. I am not about that. I'm not about picking apples off an apple tree. I'm about let's uproot this whole freaking tree. And you know what? There's a lot of roots, and they go very, very deep. And it is not going to be fast for most people, but if you're willing to go through this process and make this your number one priority, you can deal with this and you can focus on your life. Life is way too freaking short to be focusing on symptoms. Life is challenging enough, but these symptoms are holding you back from, I believe, your God-given destiny in this life. So anyway, if this helped you, click the like button. Again, make sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this. Also, if you want to work with my team where we hold you by the hand through this process, watch the 5 shifts deal from trauma, anxiety, panic, DPDR, emotional numbness. I got to come up with a new title for that. It's just like 1,000 miles long. And then at the end, we give the qualifications to apply, and then you can apply. Me and my team will take a look at the application. And I just want to be clear, this mentorship is not for everybody. We only can work with a small handful of people each month, and you can find help from other people. We're not the only people that can help you. There are a lot of people out there. Really, to tell you what you need to heal from all these things I mentioned is a body-based strategy, which I have online courses for that. And then you need co-regulation. Co-regulation is working with somebody that makes you feel safe. And there are a lot of people out there that can do that, and not just us. I mean, we'd love for you to work with us, so apply if you want to. But anybody who makes you feel safe and also using a body-based strategy to deal with the things happening in the body, that's what's going to get you out of this permanently.